This is I Should Be Writing, Season 21, Episode 14.
Well, I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there, welcome to I Should Be Writing. I am your host, Mer Lafferty, bringing you a podcast for genre writers at any stage of their career. I've been working on my archives, which is why there hasn't been a show in a while, because I've been working on the past shows, and I've been working on a secret project that I can't talk about, but it's due today, and I'm going to interview Dan, and then I'm going to go back to work on that. So I'm excited to have Dan Coyce with me. For a number of reasons. Amazing author, amazing fiction and nonfiction author. But Dan and I were in a creative writing class in college together. And Dan's about the only person I remember from that class. And so it's been really cool seeing his career go, like, you know, actually happen.
Similarly, you're like the only person I remember from that class as well.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. We're awesome. That's what it is. So, Dan, we are talking about your book, Hampton Heights, but I just want to welcome you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks. It's been a long time since 1994 or whatever, but
It has. It's been a very long time. You had to say the number, didn't you?
sorry.
So we're like at 31 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. In chat, helpful undercover dragon says, want to feel old? I actually met you once when I was a kid because my dad was into podcasting when it was a tiny community. All right. I'm going to crumble to dust now. Thank you.
People in the comments who knew you when they were kids. That's brutal.
Yeah. So let's get let's talk about the book. That's the exciting thing to start off with, and then we'll get to like all the old stories. Tell us about Hampton Heights.
Hampton Heights is a adventure story set on one freezing cold night.
Excuse me for this interruption, folks. We had a problem with the audio here, and so there's a little bit of a break. But back to our interview right now.
Yeah, the dream with this one was just to put in every weird monster and that I never thought of, or that I never wanted to play with, or that I, in the case of one particular monster, that was the longtime legend of my Wisconsin youth.
Which one was that?
The hodag.
Oh, wow.
The great beast of the Wisconsin North Woods.
So okay, so each kid or each pair, they each go to a different house to sell newspapers, and that is not. This is the classic. What does your character want, but what do they need? And so what they want is to sell newspapers, and what they need is
to get out of Hampton Heights alive. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so the setup for this book is the non-supernatural setup for this book is based on a real thing that I had to do when I was 12 and 13. When I was a paper boy for the Milwaukee Sentinel in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And our stupid manager, Kevin, once a year would come pick us up in a big shitbox white van and drive us to some random neighborhood in Milwaukee and just send us out there and be like, okay, sell subscriptions, kids. I'll see you in 2 hours. Then we'll get Burger King.
Probably went off took his murder van off to the bar.
Something, yes. I'm sure. I mean, he definitely did not hang around with us. And, you know, I, of course, when I thought he was like elderly, he probably was 22.
Yeah, probably.
But yes, the idea that once upon a time, this was a normal thing to do, to just take a bunch of kids out to a neighborhood they'd never been in and send them door to door to just try and sell newspaper subscriptions.
Girl Scout
it struck
cookies.
me as like a funny setup that you could then amp up by it turning out that the neighborhood they're in has sort of its own secrets and mythology.
So was there a zoning thing? Is that why they all ended up in that neighborhood? Or are you implying that there are more monsters elsewhere?
That's a great unanswered question. Someone does refer to all the vampires in Milwaukee living on the south side. So it does seem that in the Milwaukee I've imagined here, at least, there's maybe exclusionary zoning or redlining that really affects different monsters and restricts them to certain neighborhoods. Milwaukee, in the time when I grew up there, and I think maybe even still today, was one of America's most segregated cities, racially segregated cities. And in fact, that comes up quite a bit in the book, because Hampton Heights, the real Hampton Heights, in the late 80s was a neighborhood that was experiencing rapid integration in a way that caused neighborhood strife and also a lot of enrichment of the neighborhood. But it would be very funny to think of Milwaukee as a city where also all the monsters can't live in the same neighborhoods as each other necessarily, because they're restricted by various covenants and neighborhood associations.
HOAs, they govern everything. You don't mess with them.
You can have a werewolf in your home, but that werewolf's fur must be puce or ecru. And
your werewolf must mow the lawn frequently.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Very.
Meaning get a haircut.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I've been excited to see you do is, as somebody already mentioned in chat, strange hearing you here when they listen to you on Slate all the time. But you have built your career up doing a lot of nonfiction stuff. And then this isn't your first novel, but you've done a lot more nonfiction, as I understand it.
Yeah, I have been a journalist for years and years and years. And I've been at Slate for 13 years, in fact, writing features and criticism and stupid blog posts and podcasting a lot, where I think many people who listen to you may have heard me on the Culture Gabfest and on other shows there. And that was my training and experience. But before I was a journalist, I was an aspiring fiction writer in workshops with you in college, and then in an MFA program shortly after college. And that MFA program really did a number on me. Like, I really flopped my way through that MFA. I was working, and I was working full time during it, and I was TAing, and I didn't really have a lot of good ideas, and I hadn't actually, in retrospect, I think I just did the MFA much too soon. I just hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have anything to write about. And my thesis was supposed to be a novel, and I couldn't finish it. And I bailed on it. And eventually, a year later, I just sort of threw together a bunch of workshop stories and said it's a collection just to get the hell out of the program. And then I spent, 15 years thinking, well, I guess fiction's not my thing.
Yeah.
And building a nonfiction and journalism career, which felt, manageable and doable, in part because I never felt like I had to search for material. The material was out there in the world. If I could just find it, I could write it down. And then when I turned 40, I had a real sort of midlife crisis moment of thinking, what the hell? I really used to love writing fiction and making things up. And why did I let myself make this decision about myself that I could never do this thing, or that I couldn't write a novel? And so then I spent the next 7 years just working on fiction projects, which over time cohered into my first novel, which was a contemporary family and relationship comedy called Vintage Contemporaries, which came out a couple years ago. And the process of doing that was long and arduous, but was also really rewarding. And I was very proud of the book. And I also was proud that I had done this thing that for so many years I had convinced myself was not the thing for me to be doing.
Right. Yeah, it's very, I don't even know the emotion I'm feeling. It's it's nice feeling I'm not alone, and I'm horrified that you pretty much went through the same thing that I did. And so this is the reason why I do this show, and I apologize to all the people who actually heard this before, but if you're new, you haven't.
And now's the time.
Yes. I stopped writing for 10 years after leaving college because I got it in my head that I didn't have an instructor to guide me anymore. And there was somebody else in the program who was better than me, Dan. And so for some ridiculous reason, my brain's like, well, that's it. You tried, you failed. Let's go on and let's learn internet stuff. And it took me a long time to realize that no, you can continue to learn and improve. And you can be good and Dan can be good at the same time, especially since
an incredibly valuable lesson.
Yes, I know. And I'm sorry you struggled so much in an MFA program. I was struggling not in an MFA program, and not doing anything. So what I try to do with this show is tell people, like, when you think somebody else is better than you, or you think that what you just wrote is crap, you can still keep going. No one's going to stop you except for you. So it's that's another reason why I'm just so glad to have you here.
And if you're the kind of person who maybe will take comfort out of this too, it's also worth knowing, however much, if you're, for example, a person who can occasionally be filled with writerly jealousy, I certainly am that kind of person. It is useful to remember that whatever nervousness or insecurities you have about your own writing, and however much you think that other person is serenely confident and never agonizes about what they're trying to put on the page or how the world views their writing, if it views it, or will the world ever view their writing, rest assured that person is exactly as insecure as you and feels exactly as bad sometimes about their writing as you do about your writing. The key is to just keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. We got writer jealousy. What on earth is that? Massive sarcasm there. Yeah. One of my
Well, I'm sorry
friends.
that you through that. And I also I think it is worth saying that I think I was a very particular kind of undergraduate workshop student. I think I was a very fluent writer, which is to say I could write really good sentences. I didn't necessarily have anything. In retrospect, I realize now I didn't necessarily have that much going on behind them. Like, I didn't know what I was writing exactly, but I also think I was very good at presenting an air of like absolute confidence and even authority in those workshops, which was totally unearned, of course. And I'm sure was like deeply irritating, not only to you, but I'm sure it was irritating to like our professors. I'm sure they were like,
I didn't say I was irritated. I try to be very careful. It's like, it's not you who did this active thing to me. This is like the you I built up in my head as the better writer. And so I just want to make that clear that I'm not harboring a grudge.
It's very clear. But I also think the me I was a persona developed in some ways as a defense mechanism to try and intentionally or unintentionally create that feeling in other people. Like, it helped me and my very shaky confidence to present an air of absolute authority. And I wasn't really thinking at the time about how that read to people who weren't me, because when you're that age, you're typically not thinking about people who aren't you, except to feel bad about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. So, what are you working on now?
I have 2 nonfiction books that I'm in the middle of that are due pretty soon. One is just a collection of essays about art and regular people, about what is art for non-artists. What is the role of art in the life of non-artists? And then one is a memoir about the card game Hearts.
Oh, wow.
Learning the card game Hearts when I met my wife and her family, because that is their love language. And that is the game I had to learn in order for her mother and father to think I was not an idiot. So it's a kind of pocket history of card games and table games, but also a memoir about trying to fit in to a new family who you are desperate to make love you.
Wow.
So I've got those. And then I have a long bubbling novel, which, as Hampton Heights was totally different from Vintage Contemporaries, so is this new one totally different from Hampton Heights. It's historical fiction. It's set in Ireland in the 1850s and 1860s. You may have noticed that I am neither Irish nor living in the 1850s or 1860s. So far, every sentence a character says in this novel sounds like the Lucky Charms leprechaun, but I'm working on it, and I hope it will get better soon.
So that's an excellent segue. I know you said you weren't doing fiction for a while for bad reasons, unfortunate reasons, but you have been able to build your journalism career and your nonfiction writing and and now your fiction. And I know people who wish they could only write the book that's in their head right now, or the series that's in their head right now. And I tried to hug them and say, don't do that. But it's such a passion thing for people. But I'm just like, you can't tie yourself to that, but keep thinking of different things. But then other people who worry that if they write the elf erotica, will they always be an elf erotica author? And so what I want to ask of you is, you're doing your memoir, you're doing your nonfiction stuff, you're doing your historical, your humor and your horror, and then when are you going to write the elf erotica, and do you think you will have problems hitting that genre?
I look forward to the elf erotica in my future. I do think a lot of writers get very nervous that if they have some success, however they measure success with a piece of writing, whether it's a story that gets a huge response, or a fic that a lot of people like, or a novel that they sell, or something they publish themselves that they get a lot of good comments on, they feel like, oh, that's my lane. Mm-hmm. I should now be in that lane. If I get out of that lane, everyone's going to be mad at me, or my publisher won't publish me. Or if you're lucky enough to have an agent, my agent will be like, what the hell are you doing? And to some extent, I do think that there are industry, norms around that idea. But I have also found that the writers I love the most, the writers who are most important to me, have never seemed to really give a damn about that, and have mostly written what it seems like they're most interested in. And then when the next thing comes along, when the next idea comes along, they just write that, even if it isn't anything like the previous thing. And I have found that to be so freeing and to make my writing life so much happier, because it means that each thing I'm doing feels like a new, exciting, fun challenge and set of puzzles to solve and a set of problems to work out. And I never feel bored. Like I never feel like, oh, I know how to do this thing and I can just sort of sleepwalk my way through it. That is not interesting to me. I don't know if you're like this, Mur, but the reason I write, I finally figured out after a long, long time, is that is how I figure out how I think and feel about things. And so the idea of just writing the same thing over and over again, of relearning why I feel the same stuff I learned about before, or how I feel about the things I've already worked out, how I feel about, that seems terrible. And I would much rather find some new stuff in my life or in the world or in other worlds or in the genitals of elves to explore and try those. That's just so much more fun. And it turns out, I don't know, maybe 20 years from now, I'll be like, boy, I wish I hadn't written that elf erotica. That really torpedoed my career. But right now, people read what I write and it seems like it's interesting. And my publisher bought my second novel, even though it didn't have anything to do with my first novel. And it hasn't hurt me at all. And it's made my writing life a million times better.
So I assume you do have an agent?
I do have an agent, yes.
How does your agent view most agents cover a certain specific number of genres and don't want to touch any of the other ones? Have you had the problem of that, or do you still manage to stay within what your agent represents? I
haven't. I think if I actually went all out elf erotica, my agent would be interested and game, but would feel a little at sea. Mm-hmm. I don't think she sells much to, to Tor or other straight genre publishers. But I also think she is pretty open-minded and excited about me being excited about the things I write and would probably give it a try. The two novels that I have sold have both been to the same house, and it's to HarperCollins, which, has a lot of different branches, but it's to the same editor, who is broadly a literary fiction editor, and I'm doing my best to sort of stretch what she considers her definition of literary fiction to be.
Okay. When you got
to her credit, when I sent her this book, she said, wow, I wasn't expecting this at all, but it's fun to read, and I think people would like it, so why don't we try selling it and see how it goes?
Did you write it on spec?
Yes, I did not. She did not know I was working on this.
Oh, okay.
I wrote it without a contract. I just sent it to her and said, I hope you like it. If not, I'm so sorry about what I've done.
So as somebody who has a lot of different jobs, and as far as I know, all of them are writing, how do you structure your day?
Well, that interestingly to me, maybe not to everyone in the world, it's going to change pretty soon, because I am leaving Slate actually in just a couple of weeks after 13 years. Yes. But in general, that's really varied over time. And one reason that first novel took me 7 years is that my kids were littler. I had a sort of intense editorial job at Slate. I was the culture editor at Slate for a lot of that period, which was a real all-consuming job. And so basically most of that first novel I wrote between like 10:45 and 11:30 at night.
Oh, wow.
In teensy tiny little chunks that then a long time later I found ways to like jam together under superheated conditions until they fused together to form a novel. But that was like hard and obviously not optimal.
Yeah.
And so as my kids have gotten older, I have managed to find a sort of more reasonable way. And as my job has gotten less intense, I stepped away from editing at Slate a couple of years ago, and now I'm just a full-time writer, which is obviously, that is a lot of work, but it also means I almost never have to work past like 5 or 6. Like I do not have to be on my email all night. I do not have to be on Slack worrying that a celebrity is going to die and we have to have stories about that dead celebrity. That's not my problem anymore. So now I can write. So I do Slate work during the day. I'm usually working on one big feature at any given time, and maybe one podcast project and a couple of smaller things. And then I can usually give myself a couple of hours, a couple of days a week to work on, my own writing as I think of it, whatever book project is in the hopper. And I spend a lot of weekend time on those. And then when I can, I try and take some vacation time and just give myself sort of fake quasi writing retreats, either at home or, at a hotel or something. I've been lucky enough to do 2 actual retreats, in my career. Those have been really great. I've never gotten into the ones where they pay your way. I've only gotten into the ones where you have to pay for it. So I don't know that that's really like a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
But like having that focused artistic time in an environment full of people who are all focusing on their creative projects is really gratifying and worthwhile and useful. And I really love those. But now, starting August 18th, I'm working on books and my own projects full time. And so that will, I think, more closely resemble the idea of a writing life that I've had so long. And I'm curious to see whether the reality will match up to what I've always dreamed of, but it will be writing in the morning and then taking the afternoon to sort of do other stuff, to send emails and send pitches and do house stuff and prepare for dinner and whatever.
But I'm sitting home watching the doctor.
The book is Hampton Heights, and it is out on shelves now. Where can we find you online? Which is sometimes a funny question if someone's very obviously online, but you know what? Someone may not know.
I'm less obviously. I mean, I have like a website. I was a big Twitter person for a long time, but then I was driven off of Twitter when I wrote a mean article about Martin Short and everyone yelled at me.
Driven off by Martin Short, not...
No, Martin himself never commented, but all his famous friends did. And so then my Twitter was besieged by people being like, Steve Martin says you're a piece of crap. So I'm no longer on Twitter.
I'm sorry, that statement started the way I've heard so many people say it, and then it did not end where most people end it. So I'm just still...
So many good reasons to get off Twitter, and I chose the stupidest one. So yeah, I have a website, and I frequently publish articles on the internet, on Slate and elsewhere, and that's where. And you can find me on podcasts. I do Slate podcasts all the time. I also have several of my own. I do a podcast about Martin Amis called The Martin Chronicles. That's me and Jason Zinnemann and Parl Segel from the New York Times. And I do a podcast with Isaac Butler called Charm Offensive, which is just us talking on the phone with each other.
Yes, I love the high charisma podcasts. Those are fun.
It's just a cash hangout on the telephone.
Yeah.
He's often walking his dog.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Dad. It's been lots of fun to catch up.
I'm so delighted that we got to do this.
Me too. Thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing, the longest running writing podcast on the internet. This episode was made possible by The Fabulous, who support the podcast via Patreon or Ghost. You can find the links to how to support at merverse.com. Theme music provided by John Anealio, art provided by Numbers Ninja, podcast hosting provided by Libsyn. This episode is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 license. And you can find all of my books and podcasts at merverse.com.